Oh, truly beautiful. And I could hear some whispers and ahs around me as you looked at those beautiful photos there. So yeah, have a look at that book, and it's going to come back to me. It's mine, and I didn't pay $5 for it either. So yeah. Okay, my big idea this morning, in case you want to go to sleep during the church service, is simply this. Choose Jesus, not belongings. Choose Jesus, not belongings. And this is part 2 virtually of the sermon I preached last week. And as I was getting this one out, I found 2 more. It's pretty exciting when you see the gospel and when you come up close to people who are close to Jesus. The passage for this morning is Luke 14, 15 to 23. Luke 14, 15 to 23. If you could turn there with me. Matthew, Mark, Luke. 14. 15 to 23. When one of those who reclined at the table with him heard these things, he said to him, "Blessed is the one who will eat bread in the kingdom of God." Then he told him, a man was giving a large banquet and invited many. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servants to tell those who were invited, "Come, because everything is now ready." So if you've got your Bible, you might want to underline or highlight the word invited. You might like to underline the line, "Everything is now ready." Without exception, they all began to make excuses. The first one said to him, "I have bought a field and I must go out and see it. I ask you to excuse me." Another said, "I have bought the 5 yoke of oxen and I'm going to try them out. I ask you to excuse me." And another one said, "I just got married and therefore I am unable to come." So the servant came back and reported these things to the master. So you might want to underline there the word excuses. Then it angered the master of the house, and he told his servants, "Go out into the streets and alleys," you might want to underline streets and alleys, "of the city, and bring here the poor, the maimed, the blind, and the lame." Master, the servant said, "What you ordered has been done, and there's still room." Then the master told the servant to go to the highways and hedges and make them come in, so that my house may be filled. For I tell you, not one of those people who are invited will enjoy my banquet. So we have here our passage, and the main words coming out of us there are the words invited, get ready, or the party is ready, excuses, and streets and alleys. That's the main gist of the sermon this morning that wraps around the big idea of choose Jesus, not belongings. Last Saturday night, I was there struggling a bit. We were a little bit undernumbered, both here for setup for Midland Meals and down there. I was on the barbecue and trying to push it a bit so we got the burgers underway as quick as we could get them. I looked behind me because there was this noise coming, and it was a guy down there sitting on the gutter. There's a gutter there that backs onto the police station. It's a long gutter, and a lot of them will come and sit there before and during and after Midland Meals. One guy was sitting there and making a bit of noise, and if I can hear it with my deafness, it's got to be a bigger noise. So I know that when I hear something, I've got to go and sort it out. I turned back over to him and I said, "Hey matey, you can't have open alcohol here in public. It's the law." And he goes, "Oh, I can do anything I want." I said, "Hey matey, you can't." I said, "Can you please give it to me or bury it in your bag or under your shirt?" And so he decided to bury it, and telling me a few things about what I can do with myself. And I went back to the barbecue. He's there making a bit more noise. And I just prayed and said, God, you've got to do something. I need help. And I'm finding Saturday is a bit of a struggle at the moment because you preach your heart out and then you've got to give your heart out in the afternoon out there on the meals. I said, God, help me. And that instance, a lady who knows Midland Meals really, really well turned up and said, I wasn't sure if I should go to Ellenbrook or to Midland tonight. I said, you'll need it at Midland on the barbecue. And it was Patty Jones, a lady we love so much. And so she looked after the barbecue. And I went back and I sat with him. And he goes to me, what's your problem? And I said, I've got no problems. Well, nothing you need to know about now in your drunken state anyhow. And he's there singing away, talking away. And another guy said, Lauren, I'm David. And he said, I want to apologise for my mate. He's not normally like this. And I said, yeah, I know. He's not normally like this. And then this guy says to me, he said, you just told me to put my alcohol away because you're a 7-day Adventist, aren't you? I said, no, I did that too. I said, I don't like alcohol. But I said, I told you to put it away because I said it's going to get me in trouble. And I said, this is a public space. We can't have alcohol, open alcohol here. And I said, how do you know I'm a 7-day Adventist? He said, I just know. I said, good, that's great. I said, I'm really proud of it. He said, so am I. He said, and he mentioned years ago, he said, I used to go to the town starting with G up north of us, Geraldton. I used to go to Geraldton Church, and he mentioned Trevor Royce. And he said, I got baptised in the church. I said, oh, really? And we sat there and looked over the barbecue, and it was going okay. I offered a quick word of prayer with him. And he said, thanks, Pastor. I said, you know I'm a pastor? He said, yeah, I do. I said, oh, good. And then his mate came over afterwards and thanked me. He said, what is it about you guys? Many people yell at us and move us on. But he said, you don't. You don't move us on. You talk with us. And I said, that's what this is all about. And as next few days, I've been down there, I look at that gutter and I've been thinking, a lot of the highlights of Midland Meals happens at that gutter, in that gutter or above that gutter. That's the gutter where there's a holiday house behind, and a lot of people end up in that holiday house having holidays by force. And their partners, their friends will come and put a blanket out and sleep there overnight so they can be close to their friends or partners who are in jail for the night or two. Others will come, they've got nowhere, they'll put a bed out there and sleep there because it's got lights and they feel safer under the lights. That gutter there, to me, is the centrepiece of Midland Meals. And I haven't told you all that before, but as I look at it, I can see that gutter is where the majority of encounters I've had with people, for good or for bad, have happened at that gutter. The gutter isn't sanitised. The gutter is filled with broken, messed up people who have reached a point where they don't worry what others think about their appearance. Simply put, my gutter may not be your gutter, but we all have gutters. The gutter is the place where we discover that we need God the most. The gutter is the place where we discover that we need God the most. The gutter is a place where believers are not willing to go anymore because they remember what it was like when they escaped from their gutter. The gutter is a place where believers are not willing to go anymore because they remember what it was like when they escaped from their gutter. My definition of a gutter, then, is this. The gutter is the place I am least likely to go because it's a place where people are that are not like me. They are not Christian. My definition again, The gutter is a place I am least likely to go because it is a place where people are not like me. They are not Christian. The Gospel Commission, church, will only be carried into all the world by people who are intimately acquainted with their gutters as individuals and as a corporate church. And when you boil it down, that is what we are to take to the world. That is the mission that Jesus gave us, was the Gospel Commission. And he says, take that church, take that saved individual to the gutters. The gutter is the place that separates you and I. The gutter is the place that separates people from Jesus. It has to do with the word sin. Some of us, it might be rebellion, drugs, selfishness. Or your gutter might be broken relationships, sexual sin, and greed. Your gutters that each of us have might be free from vomit and filth, but covered in arrogance and pride. And this is the very people that Jesus was dealing with when this story was told. You had those whose gutters were filled with arrogance and pride, called the Pharisees. You had those in the gutters who were accepting the invites. They'll call those on the byways and the highways the hedges. I've got 3 points in my sermon this morning I want you to take home with you. 1, God celebrates with people from the gutters. God celebrates with people from the gutters. In our story here, and I won't go back to it for a time, but you know the story well. The man prepares a banquet and says, all is ready. He's done all the work. Now, when you throw a party, you share it with people you love. That's why the invite's gone out. They went out to the people that the man loved. When you think of a wedding, and we all love weddings, nearly as special as baby dedications. We love weddings. When you look back over the pictures, when you look back on memories of your wedding days and weddings that you've been to that are great, you don't remember the food and you don't remember the reception area. You remember those who were there that you invited, that you loved. You remember those who were there that you invited, that you loved. You remember the best man's wedding toast. We all wait for the toast, don't we? And the speech that follows. You remember the maid of honour's toast to the girls and the talk about the girls, etc. We love those moments. Why? Because weddings, parties are all about relationships rather than the wedding reception. And a party is all about relationships rather than the food and the venue. It's all about who is there, who was there. And it brings back special conversations because relationships do that. With Jesus, it's the same with heaven that he's calling us. It's about relationships. The Gospel Commission that we are called to preach into all the world rides on relationships. We have to get that into our heads somehow, church. We go all around the bush. We go all around it. We hedge around it. But we never realise that the Gospel Commission that we're called to give to the world rides on relationships, and we aren't good at that. With Jesus, the blessing doesn't come from the feast. It comes when you dine with the King. Hence my last week's sermon. The blessing comes when you dine with the King and you dine with those who love the King. My first point was God celebrates with people from the gutter. My second point is excuses reveal your priorities. Now, there was a song map about this thing, I Cannot Come. As a kid, we used to sing it in primary school, in Mildura Avenue School, and we used to get mixed up. I've married a cow, bought me a wife, like the things that you do when you're primary school kids and when you're pathfinders. But the song has a serious point. The passage here, when it says all the excuses they've got here, the three excuses reveal the priorities of the people making the excuses. It wasn't gutter dwellers who rejected Jesus. It was those he gave the invite to. The gutter dwellers flocked to Jesus because he had a relationship with them. Zacchaeus' gutter was the top of a tree. Other people's gutters were in various places. The blind man, he couldn't even see his gutter. All those that had gutters flocked to Jesus because he lifted them from the gutter. The excuses came from those who claimed to be his best friends. Excuse boils down to this: I don't want to be there because I have other priorities. And the reaction of the one giving the banquet gives us an inkling how God must feel. When he said, go to the highways and the byways, go to the gutters. Priorities. Matthew 6:33 says, seek first the kingdom. Seek first the kingdom, and all these other priorities will be added unto you. But your job, church, your job, Lauren, your job, believer in Jesus, is seek first the kingdom. Deuteronomy 6 verses 4 to 9. Deuteronomy 6, 4 to 9 says this about priorities. Deuteronomy 6, 4 to 9 says this about priorities. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way. Beautiful passage. He asked the theologians of in the room, it's from the Shema, and every Israel had to know it. Every Israelite had to know it. It was pasted on their doorsteps. It was pasted on their bodies. This is the central passage for them, and I believe it's the central passage for every Christian who professes the name of Jesus Christ. It says these words to me, and see how you feel. It says, love me first, says God. Love me first. Let me be your first affection. Then it says, love me with all you've got. All your heart. Love me with all you've got. Then Brody and April, this is for you and for all of us. Show your children how much you love me with every chance you get. Show your children how much you love me with every chance you get. Jesus is saying here, church, if you want to receive my promises, you want to receive my blessings, put me first. Put me first. So the man throws a celebration. Secondly, these guys bringing excuses, and really it shows priorities, not putting Jesus first. Thirdly, God sends the servants to the gutter for a reason. God sends the servants to the gutter for a reason. His own son, Jesus Christ, came from the gutter to this earth. Came through the gutter, to this earth. Jesus was not received by those who he was meant to be received by. He was received by the unexpected, those from the gutter, those from other lands, those who were shepherds out in the fields. Received him first before those who he loved received him. Those who were invited thought they deserved the invitation. Those who were in the gutter thought they were too low to deserve an invitation. And yet, in the life of Jesus, as he roamed earth for 3.5 years, the gutter people flocked to him because he brought them from the gutter. Jesus lived in the gutter. He walked the streets and alleys of the gutter and became so well known as a friend of the sinners. I ask you this morning again, where did God bring you from when you received salvation? That's the gutter that the Gospel Commission calls you back to. We gather on Saturdays not just to sit at the table and get fat. We gather on Wednesdays not just to sit at the table and get fat. We have Bible study times together not just to sit and get fat. We must not do that. This is not a church. This is not a place for getting fat. This place must always be a place where we become better disciple makers. We come here and we learn skills that we can take out there to our gutters to bring God's people to the party. It is not time to sit down yet. It is not time to sit down and party yet, when there are so many empty seats around in here this morning. We will have time to enjoy the feast when Jesus returns and calls us home to the wedding banquet of the Lamb. My big idea, choose Jesus, not belongings. Until then, we have invitations to give out. Until Jesus comes, we have invitations to give out. This place here must never become a memorial. It must always be a charging up station to take me back out to my gutters where I can bring people from there to come to know Jesus. My mission place, my place of being has to be the gutter, and that's where I have to stay as your pastor always and forever, because the calling on me as your pastor is to go into all the world and preach the gospel, and the call is to take you with me. May God use our beautiful building here, not for a memorial, but a charging station to kick us out of here into our communities each week and to live the love of Jesus, the Deuteronomy passage I read to you, to love the Lord with all your heart, to do that out in our communities, out in our gutters. Those of you who know me really well know that I've had a few issues at the moment, and I struggled with doing the baptism. I was just so sore, and on the Thursday before I did the baptism, my feet were just bleeding, my socks were just filled with blood. And I was worried, and a lovely little lady in our church who I'm getting to love so much every time we have a chat and a talk, Helly, is at the sink, and she said, if I got you some soap, would you try it? I looked at her and I said, Hilly, I'm so desperate. I'll try anything. I just want to just stop this bleeding. I just want to stop the rash. I just want to hold it and stop feeling like a pincushion all my life. She met me in the car park because I didn't think she could follow up. She came back with 2 bars of soap, and Hilly, this is one of them. That's how much I got left. And she said, try it. Try it. Went home. Next morning, I tried it. And it held the rash back enough for me to be able to do the baptism and not colour the water with crimson colour. And I was so happy, and I thanked her for that. And when I thought about it, this was useless. It was just a bar of soap in Hilly's hand till she handed it to me. Until I used what the soap was made for, and that is under the water to cleanse and to help remove the rashes. It's called Manuka honey soap, and it is working. All too often, we as church, we have the best soap around. We have the beautiful teachings of the Bible. We have the Gospel Commission. We have hands and feet and heart that are a blessing. We must never leave our lives like soap in the soap packet. It's useless to anyone like that. We must get the soap that God has given us, and we must give it to every person in the gutter we can find in our gutters. We've been given the soap to give to others for a reason. Let's wear the soap bars out. The servants knew where the highways and the byways were because they had been there. They didn't need a sat-nav. They learned the most effective response comes from the gutter. It's usually the place where you've been before that scares you stupid, but that's where God sends you and I this morning. It's where life is meant to be lived. It's the place where God's sheep roar the best. It's the place where God's lambs roar the best.